The sound was a metallic shriek, the scream of a rusted hinge giving way under force, and it was the last sound of the normal world Elara Vance would ever hear. The chain-link gate slammed shut behind her, the crash echoing through the cavernous, shadow-draped industrial yard like a tomb ceiling. Her lungs seized, not just from the impact of the shove, but from the smell that assaulted her, a cocktail of stale motor oil, decaying concrete, and the sharp, wild stench of animal musk and fear. Before her, anchored by a massive chain bolted to a rusted iron ring in the floor, was a creature from a nightmare. Cerberus. That was the name she'd heard them sneer. Not a pet, not even a guard dog, a war dog, a Belgian Malinois, but magnified, a sculpture of coiled fury. Its coat was a patchwork of scars over tense muscle. It didn't bark, it erupted. A hacking, guttural, roaring snarl that tore from its chest, a sound of pure, unadulterated hatred. Strings of saliva, tinged with bloody pink from raw gums, whipped from its jaws as it launched itself against the chain. The metal links screamed in protest, digging into the concrete, holding the beast just 5 feet from her trembling form. Each lunge was a promise of evisceration, its black eyes fixed on her with a predatory focus that emptied her mind of everything but primal terror. Behind the safety of the fence, 3 figures were silhouetted against the distant, sickly yellow glow of a security light. Tyler, Marcus, and Jaden. Their blue and yellow varsity jackets, emblems of Stonehaven Academy, of quarterback glory, of legacy admissions and untouchable privilege, were pristine. Tyler, his blonde hair perfectly tousled even in this grim place, had his phone raised, the screen's glow illuminating his smug, handsome face. He was filming. See. Tyler's voice was a mocking sing-song, pitched to carry over the dog's psychotic rage. "He's just misunderstood." Dad's firm said he was too high, drive for private security. A little aggressive. "But you're good with broken things, aren't you? Scholarship. You relate." The nickname was a deliberate barb owned over months. Elara, in her simple uniform, a white crop top and navy skirt that now felt like a flag of vulnerability, represented everything they held in contempt. Her intelligence, which their money couldn't buy. Her scholarship, a testament to a work ethic that shamed their coasting. Her quiet dignity, which refused to crack under their casual cruelty. She had committed the unforgivable sin, exposing their sophisticated cheating ring. This wasn't just revenge, it was a lesson in cosmology. They were the suns, she was a speck of dust to be incinerated. "Open the gate," Elara said. Her voice surprised her, a thread of steel in the trembling air. "Or what?" Marcus laughed, a brittle, nervous sound. He jingled a heavy padlock key. "You'll tell. My uncle's the sheriff. It'll be your word against ours. 3 pillars of the community against the unstable scholarship girl who wandered into a restricted area after dark." Tragic. Jaden, the quiet one, hovered at the edge of the light, his face pale. Tyler didn't even glance at him. "Think of it as a practical exam, Elara," Tyler mused, zooming in on her face. "Societal dynamics. The strong dictate the environment. The weak, well, they get exposed to the elements." His philosophical tone was more terrifying than any shout. Then, with a shared, wordless glance, Tyler and Marcus moved. They reached through the diamond-shaped links, not with hesitant hands, but with the forceful certainty of those who had never been denied. Their hands gripped her arms, her shoulders, and shoved. Hard. Elara was propelled forward, a cry torn from her throat. She landed on her hands and knees, the rough oil-slicked concrete shredding her skin. The sudden movement was a trigger. Cerberus exploded. The world narrowed to the vision of lunging muscle, the percussion of snarling, the hot, meaty blast of its breath. She scrambled backward like a crab until the cold, unforgiving wire of the fence dug into her spine. Trapped, the dog was a whirlwind of teeth and sound, the chain grinding, always grinding, a hair's breadth from failure. Death was no longer an abstraction. It was a scent, a sound, a presence inches away. Tyler's laughter filtered through the haze of her terror. This was it. This was the full, final consequence of her integrity. To be torn apart for the amusement of boys who would cry at her funeral. As the dog gathered itself, muscles coiling for a final, definitive lunge that the worn chain might not withstand, Elara's gaze locked with the animal's. Past the froth, past the rage, she saw it, a network of scars across a muzzle that had known too many blows, a subtle favoring of a hind leg, the gauntness beneath the fur. This wasn't just a vicious animal. It was a prisoner, a creature of pain. And in that millisecond, with the jaws of death yawning before her, a lifetime of empathy. For her overworked mother, for stray animals, for anyone who bore invisible wounds, crystallized into a single silent understanding. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. As the beast launched itself, she whispered one word into the maelstrom, a word so quiet it was lost to the boys, but which hung in the charged air between victim and beast. A word that would change the axis of the world. Elora Vance's life was a masterpiece of delicate equilibrium, a house of cards built on sacrifice and silent grit. Her alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m., a sound that split the perpetual tiredness behind her eyes. Before the first school bell, she was at Rise and Shine Bakery, her arms dusted with flour, boxing croissants for a clientele that included the parents of the boys who tormented her. The scholarship to Stonehaven Academy wasn't an opportunity. It was a fragile lifeline, a single thread pulling her entire family, just her and her mother, Nurse Maria Vance, toward a stable future. Every day was a brick in a fortress against poverty. Every evening spent cleaning the plush offices of downtown law firms, including the one owned by Marcus's family, was a lesson in invisibility. Her mother's mantra was etched on her heart: the world is not fair. It will not see you. So you must be twice as good, twice as quiet, twice as resilient. Do not give them a reason to look at you. Stonehaven was a universe away from their cramped apartment. It was a landscape of curated luxury, where varsity jackets weren't sportswear but heraldry, signaling lineage and impunity. Tyler Briggs wasn't just a popular senior. He was the scion of a real estate and private security empire. His father, Richard Briggs, was a man who believed every problem had a price or a pressure point. Marcus Chen's family law firm was the shield for the city's elite. Jaden Wells's parents were celebrated surgeons, their kindness reserved for the operating room, blind to the moral sickness in their own home. The conflict began not with a bang, but with a perfect score. In advanced calculus, a class where grades were slippery things that could be adjusted. After a generous alumni donation, Elora's flawless midterm was an anomaly. Tyler, facing the catastrophic collapse of his Ivy League admission due to failing grades, approached her not with a request, but a transaction. $1,000 to take his final. When she refused, his confusion was genuine. Why would she say no? It was good money. It was efficient. His escalation was systematic. Her locker was vandalized with crude slurs. Her assigned textbooks vanished. Anonymous, threatening notes appeared in her bag. The school administration, when she finally went to them, offered sympathetic smiles and vague promises to look into it. The message was clear. She was a temporary guest in their kingdom. Don't rock the gilded boat. So when she sat for the calculus final and heard the faint, staticky whispers from Tyler's earpiece, the moral calculus became simple yet devastating. To stay silent was to become complicit in the very corruption that sought to crush her. With a heart heavy with dread, she handed a note to the proctor. The investigation that followed was a masterclass in institutional preservation. The boys presented a united front. Elora was jealous, unstable, prone to fantasies. The earpiece was a hearing aid. The stolen textbooks were a misunderstanding. Her mother, working a double shift, couldn't attend the disciplinary hearing. Elora stood alone before a panel of administrators who saw not truth, but liability. The boys received a week of in-school suspension, a vacation spent at Tyler's lake house. The story was buried. Elora believed the cost had been paid in social isolation and whispered scorn. She was naive. For Tyler, her act of defiance was not just an inconvenience. It was a crack in the foundation of his reality. If someone like her could upset the natural order, then the order wasn't natural. It had to be enforced. The lesson needed to be visceral, unforgettable, and utterly deniable. He'd heard his father rant about Cerberus, a military-grade Malinois acquired for a high-profile contract. The dog had been too much, too intense, too unpredictable. Richard Briggs had kept it, chained at a disused family-owned industrial site, a living testament to his own power over fierce things. That animal's not a dog, he'd scoffed once. It's a loaded weapon with a hair trigger. To Tyler, it wasn't a monster. It was the perfect tool. Accident, waiting to happen. A tragic tale of a troubled girl trespassing where she shouldn't, and 3 brave young men trying in vain to save her. The trap was sprung with a chilling, psychological precision. It was late, the city's shine reduced to the muted glow of streetlights in the industrial district, where she caught her bus after cleaning. The air was chill, Alara's footsteps were the only sound, her mind already home, already sinking into homework. When the sleek, black SUV, a car she recognized, pulled up silently beside her, her stomach dropped before her mind could process. The passenger window slid down. It was Jaden. In the ambient light, he looked sick, his eyes wide, his face pale. "Alara, please, stop." His voice was tight. I can't do this anymore. What they're planning, it's gone too far. I have proof. On an encrypted drive. Emails, texts. Tyler planning everything after the hearing. It's at my dad's old warehouse unit. I can't get it myself, they'd know, but you could. Please, let me make this right. It was so transparent, so obviously a lure. Yet, the human heart is a desperate organ. The part of her that still believed in redemption, in a flicker of conscience from within the beast, warred violently with every screaming instinct for self-preservation. She hesitated. That 1 second of warring thought was her undoing. From the shadows of a recessed loading dock, Tyler and Marcus emerged. They moved fast, their movements synchronized from years of sports. A hand smelling of expensive cologne clamped over her mouth, stifling her cry. Another arm hooked around her torso, lifting her off her feet. Easy scholarship. Tyler's voice hissed in her ear. We're just going for a walk. Make a sound, and it gets worse. They half carried, half dragged her through a broken section of fencing, past signs that screamed, Extram dangiard en paral talistasiars will by prosecutity. Tyler punched a code into a keypad, a green light blinked. The gates to the yard opened silently. They owned the danger, they commanded it. The caged enclosure was a separate structure within the larger yard, a giant kennel of heavy gauge chain linked under a corrugated metal roof. And there he was, Cerberus. He was silent as they approached, a sentinel in the gloom. He watched, his head low, his eyes tracking them with an unnerving, intelligent malice. Tyler unlocked the heavy padlock. The click was deafening. He's secure, Tyler said, his voice conversational as he swung the gate open. See, we're not animals. We just want to talk. A civil conversation. You're going to record a video on my phone. You're going to say you were stressed. You lied about the cheating. You made it all up. You do that, you walk out of here, and this ends. You don't? He nodded toward the dog, who had begun a low, continuous growl, a sound that vibrated in Alara's bones. In that moment, surrounded by the physical manifestations of their power, the brute strength, the control of space, the weaponized animal, Alara's fear did not dissolve into submission. It hardened. It became a diamond core. She looked past the phone, past Marcus's nervous grin, past Jaden's averted eyes, and locked on to Tyler. Her voice, when it came, was quiet but cleaved the air. No. It was more than a refusal. It was a negation of his entire existence, his premise of control. The word hung there, stark and revolutionary. Tyler's affable mask shattered. Raw, unvarnished fury twisted his features. Wrong answer. He spat, the civility gone. You just chose the hard way. That's when the hands shoved her, propelling her into the cage. The gate slammed. The lock clicked. And the world became a cage, a chain, and a pair of black, hate-filled eyes. Alone in the arena, time lost meaning. Each second was a distinct eternity of terror. The dog's snarls were not just sounds. They were physical blows of noise. Every frantic lunge against the chain was a lesson in physics, a test of metallurgy Alara prayed it would pass. She pressed her body into the fence, trying to will herself through the links. The boys' voices were a distant, mocking commentary, but her world had shrunk to the 5-foot radius of the chain's reach. Her mind, trained by a lifetime of vigilance and careful observation, began to work despite the panic. She couldn't fight the dog. She couldn't reason with the boys. Her only weapon was perception. She forced herself to really look at Cerberus past the threat. The scar on his muzzle was old but jagged, like a tear that had healed badly. His left hind leg subtly buckled under his weight with each lunge. His ribs, visible beneath the sleek coat, spoke of a diet designed for survival, not health. The Rabid froth was tinged with pink, not the white foam of disease, but the sign of bleeding gums, likely from rotten teeth or constant, frantic gnawing at his chain. This animal wasn't born a monster. It had been sculpted into one through neglect, pain, and violence. Its rage was a language, the only one it had been taught, to express a bottomless well of suffering. A strange calm began to seep through her terror. She recognized this. It was the same broken light she'd seen in the eyes of the three-legged cat behind the bakery, in the shelter dogs that cowered from raised hands. It was the look of a creature that had only known the world as a source of pain. Shh, she breathed, the exhale a soft cloud in the cold air. I know it hurts. The dog's roaring snarl hitched, just for a microsecond. Its ears, pinned flat against its skull, twitched. The furious, repetitive, lunging paused, replaced by a stiff, tense stance. It was listening, not to the words, but to the tone, a tone absent of threat, saturated in a shared understanding of hurt. Outside, Tyler grew impatient. The cinematic victimhood he was filming wasn't dramatic enough. He's just standing there! Get him riled up! Marcus, eager to please, bent and picked up a chunk of broken concrete. He hurled it through the fence. It missed Alara, but struck the ground near the dog's paws with a sharp crack. Cerberus erupted anew, this time with a redirected fury. The rock was a trigger, a reminder of past torment. It spun and snapped at the spot where the rock had landed, its chain whipping in a deadly arc. In the chaos, Tyler saw an opportunity for a better shot. Cursing, he shoved the phone at Marcus. Keep filming. He fumbled with the padlock key, unlocked the gate, and pushed it open just enough to wedge his upper body through, arm extended, trying to get a close-up of Alara's face against the backdrop of the snarling beast. "Seaman, you useless mutt!" He yelled at the dog, his voice tight with frustration. "Do what you're made for! Sick her! Get her!" This was the moment. Tyler was off balance, leaning into the cage, his focus split between tormenting her and capturing the perfect shot. Alara's survival instinct screamed one command: move, but not toward the open gate. That was a mirage. He'd slam it shut before she got close. Instead, she lunged diagonally away from the dog toward the far corner of the cage. It was a feint, a deliberate pull of the dog's attention. Cerberus, Kate on movement, whirled toward her new position. As it did, its heavy chain, following its momentum, swung in a wide, low arc. The metal links, moving with the force of a 70-pound missile, whistled through the air and connected with a sickening thwack across Tyler's exposed wrist and hand. Tyler shrieked, a raw sound of surprise and pain. His grip failed. The phone flew from his hand, skittering across the greasy concrete, coming to rest just inside the cage gate, its screen glowing like a fallen star, the red recording light still blinking. A partial victory. Evidence was now inside the lion's den. But victories have costs. The pain, the yelling, the sudden flurry of movement sent Cerberus into a berserker frenzy. The chain was no longer just a restraint. It was a flail in a whirling storm of teeth. The dog began to spin and lunge in a frantic, terrifying circle, the radius of its lethal orbit now unpredictable, covering more of the cage floor. Alara's sliver of safe space evaporated. She was now in the arena with a spinning top of destruction. And Tyler, cradling his already swelling wrist, was transformed. The smugness was gone, replaced by a pale, sweating rage. This had gone off script. He'd been hurt. His property was inside the cage. The humiliation burned hotter than the pain. This petty revenge was morphing into something darker, more desperate. He looked from his wounded hand to the dog, to Alara, to the heavy metal control box mounted on the fence post outside. An idea, monstrous and final, bloomed in his mind. "You psychotic bitch!" Tyler screamed, his voice cracking. The pain was a lens, focusing his privilege into a laser of homicidal intent. This couldn't stand. She couldn't win, even a little. He stared at the metal control box. It housed the manual release for the winch, a safety measure. A thought, cold and sleek, slithered into his mind. The chain release. Tyler hissed, turning to Marcus, whose bravado had evaporated. "In the box, it's old. Jams all the time. If it were to accidentally disengage while we were trying to get my phone back, to help her." Marcus's face went ashen. "Tyler, man, no. That's not, we can't." "That's murder! It's a malfunction!" Tyler snapped, his eyes wild. "She trespassed. She provoked the animal. We heroically tried to intervene. A tragic accident. We'll get commendations." "Now, the box." He turned to Jaden, who had been a silent, trembling statue. "Jaden! Now, open it." Jaden Wells stood at the precipice. His entire life had been a series of following the path of least resistance, of nodding along, of swallowing his discomfort for the sake of belonging. He saw Alara, small and terror-stricken, in the cage. He saw the dog, a whirlwind of manufactured fury. He saw the naked murder in Tyler's eyes. The cognitive dissonance shattered him. With a choked sob that was part apology, part surrender, he turned and ran, not toward the control box, but away into the labyrinth of darkness, his footsteps echoing then fading. "OS!" Tyler roared after him. He shoved a paralyzed Marcus toward the box. "You do it! Or you're next!" Inside the cage, Elara was dancing with death. The dog's frenzied spinning made it impossible to predict its movements. She ducked, she dodged, her muscles screaming. Her breath was a ragged saw in her chest. The faces of her mother, of her kinder teachers, of the future she had fought so hard for, flashed before her. Not as inspiration, but as a eulogy. Was this the sum total of her resilience? A bloody, anonymous end in a place where hope came to die. A profound despair, colder than the concrete, began to seep into her bones. Then she saw Marcus. With trembling, clumsy hands, he was at the control box. He fumbled with a rusted latch, pulled a heavy lever. There was a loud, definitive CUK. It wasn't the sound of the chain releasing, but of a secondary safety lock disengaging. The primary mechanism, a mechanical winch with a worn gear, was now the only thing holding the beast back. Tyler, enraged by Jaden's defection and Marcus's hesitation, grabbed a rusty tire iron leaning against the fence. He strode to the winch, his injured wrist forgotten in his fury. He raised the iron. "No," Elara screamed, the first true scream she'd uttered. Tyler brought the iron down on the winch mechanism with all his strength. "Sea-legged!" The metal shrieked. Sparks flew. With a final, groaning shudder, the winch assembly broke. Gears snapped. The chain went instantly, terrifyingly slack. Silence. For a heartbeat, the world froze. Cerberus stood still, confused by the sudden absence of tension. It looked down at the loose chain, then up at Elara, then its head swiveled toward the two boys, just outside the fence. Its body language shifted. The frantic energy coalesced into something far more dangerous, a calm, focused lethality. Its head lowered. A growl emerged, not the hysterical roar of before, but a deep, seismic rumble that vibrated from the concrete up through Elara's feet. It was the sound of a door unlocking, of a decision being made. Elara's heart stopped. This was the absolute darkest moment. The tool of her intended destruction was now fully, irrevocably unleashed, and she was locked in with it. The bullies had crossed the final line. They had engineered a murder and were now witnesses to their own crime. She was alone, not just physically, but existentially. The system, the world, had delivered her to this moment to be consumed. But no one is ever truly alone. The threads of connection, however frayed, hold. Jaden Wells, running blindly through the dark, was not fleeing to save himself. He was running toward the one thing he had left a shred of conscience. The image of Elara's defiant "no," the sight of the freed dog, the monstrous clarity on Tyler's face. It had acted like a moral defibrillator on his numb soul. He wasn't a hero. He was a coward trying, for the first time, not to be. He stumbled into the harsh fluorescent glow of a 24-hour gas station, his face streaked with tears and grime. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers slipping on the screen. He didn't call 911. Tyler's uncle, the sheriff, might intercept, delay, explain away. He called his older sister Anya, the family rebel, the one who had traded the country club for law school, who argued with their father about justice over Christmas dinner. "Anya," he gasped, the words tripping over each other. "It's Jaden." "You have to believe me. You have to help." Tyler and Marcus. They have Elara Vance at the old Briggs scrap yard on Mill Road. They've locked her in a cage with Cerberus, the war dog. "And they just broke the chain! They're going to kill her! It's not a prank, it's murder!" Anya Wells, in her apartment surrounded by law textbooks, didn't hesitate. "Breathe, send me the exact location pin right now. Then listen to me carefully. Call 911, then call Dad. Tell him everything. Use the word premeditated murder. Make it so big and so loud that they can't sweep it under the rug." "Do it now." "I'm on my way." She was already grabbing her keys and a heavy Maglite flashlight, her mind racing through criminal statutes. She called a friend from the public defender's office, then a contact at the local news. She was creating noise, a firewall of attention. Back at the cage, the universe had narrowed to the 10 feet separating Elara from death. Cerberus took a slow, deliberate step toward her, the loose chain dragging behind it with a morbid, scraping sound. Its growl was a continuous earthquake. Elara closed her eyes, not in surrender but in a final, desperate act of focus. She blocked out the triumphant sneer on Tyler's face, the whimpering fear of Marcus, the cold of the fence at her back. She let go of her own terror, her own desire to live. She poured every ounce of her being into the creature before her. She thought of its pain. The searing ache of the broken tooth. The grinding discomfort of the bad hip. The loneliness of the chain. The betrayal of every human hand that had ever struck it. She saw not a monster, but a mirror. A fellow prisoner of the same cruel, entitled masters. They had both been thrown into this arena for the crime of existing as inconvenient truths. She opened her eyes. All fear was gone, burned away in the furnace of this shared understanding. What remained was a vast, aching empathy. As Cerberus coiled its powerful haunches to spring, to finally end the game, Alara did not flinch. She stood her ground, a small, wounded figure in a white top now smudged with grime and blood. She looked straight into the bottomless black pools of its eyes, past the rage, to the suffering soul within. And with a voice that was clear, calm, and carried the weight of a universal truth, she spoke the one word that had been echoing in the silent chambers of her heart, since the moment she saw its scars. Brother. The word was not a command, it was not a plea. It was a recognition, a benediction, an absolution. It struck the animal like a physical force. Cerberus jerked back as if whipped. The relentless, rumbling growl cut off into a choked, confused whine. Its entire body language underwent a seismic shift. The hackles along its spine slowly lowered. The lips, peeled back over dagger teeth, relaxed. Its head cocked to one side, ears swiveling forward, not in aggression, but in profound, bewildered curiosity. The raw, unmediated empathy in Alara's voice, the complete absence of fear, the presence of shared suffering, had bypassed a lifetime of violent conditioning. It spoke directly to the core of the animal that existed before the beatings, before the chain, before it was renamed for a monster. It saw her small and wounded, not as prey, but as something kin. Alara, moving with the slow, deliberate grace of a deep sea diver, lowered herself to her knees. She made herself smaller, non-threatening. A single tear traced a clean path through the dirt on her cheek, a drop of shared salt. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice for the dog alone. "I'm not here to hurt you. They hurt us both." They outside the fence, Tyler and Marcus stared, their brains refusing to process the data. The dog had stopped. It was listening to her. What is she doing?" Marcus breathed, his voice trembling. Then Alara did the impossible. She extended her hand, palm up and open, toward the massive, scarred head. A tremor ran through the dog's powerful frame. It whined again, a sound of deep confusion and ancient, unlocked hurt. It took one hesitant step, then another. It lowered its head, sniffing the air, then her extended fingers. Its wet, cold nose brushed her skin. The tension bled from its muscles in a visible wave. The weapon had been disarmed. And then it turned. Its massive, intelligent head swiveled away from Alara, its gaze fixing on the chain-link fence. On the source of the shouted commands, the thrown rock, the hands that had beaten it, the voices that had only ever spoken in cruelty. It saw Tyler, who had just shattered its final tether. It saw Marcus, who had thrown the stone. Its lips peeled back once more, but this snarl was different. It was clean, cold, and laser-focused. It was not the rage of a trapped beast, but the calculated fury of a judge passing sentence. "No, hey, stay! Good dog, stay!" Tyler yelped, his voice cracking as he stumbled back from the fence, his bravado evaporating. But the dog was already in motion. It wasn't a blind charge. It was a tactical assault. It launched itself at the chain, linked not with frantic anger, but with the focused power of a battering ram. It hit the fence at a calculated point, near the gate's weakened latch. Boom! The entire panel of heavy gauge wire bowed inward with a deafening metallic groan. Tyler and Marcus scrambled backward, tripping over discarded pipes, falling onto the greasy concrete. The dog hit the fence again. Boom! Links began to pop, pinging into the air like bullets. The structural integrity was failing. Sirens, a chorus of them, sliced through the night from multiple directions. Jaden's and Annia's calls had created a perfect storm of response. Red and blue lights strobed against the warehouse walls, painting the scene in surreal, frantic color. Tyler, in a final, pathetic act of self-preservation, turned to flee, but panic made him clumsy. His foot caught on a loop of thick electrical cable. He went down hard, the air bursting from his lungs. Marcus didn't look back, he just ran, vanishing into the dark maze. With one final monumental heave, Cerberus threw its weight against the gate. The broken lock snapped. The gate flew open with a shriek of tortured metal. The beast was free. It stalked out of its prison, its movements sleek and purposeful. It ignored Alara, who remained kneeling, a statue of calm in the storm. It went straight for the crawling, sobbing Tyler. It placed a massive, heavy paw directly on his chest, pinning him to the ground. Then it lowered its head, bringing its face inches from Tyler's. The hot, meaty breath fogged in the cold air. Tyler whimpered, his body convulsing with terror, tears and snot mingling on his face. The dog didn't bite. It didn't maul, it simply held him there, a living, breathing embodiment of judgment, its eyes locked on his, the low growl a promise of what could happen. In that frozen tableau, the authorities arrived. Police cruiser skidded to a halt, doors flying open. Anya Wells's car screeched in behind them, and she leaped out. Behind her, in a separate squad car, was Jaden with a grim-faced detective in a plain suit, a state investigator Anya had called in, bypassing the local sheriff entirely. They took in the scene, the shattered cage, the weeping boy pinned by the massive dog, the girl emerging from the open gate, her composure eerie amidst the chaos. "Lara!" Anya shouted, rushing forward but stopping short of the dog. "Are you hurt?" Alara looked at Cerberus, then at the ruined form of Tyler Briggs, then at the gathering circle of flashing lights and stunned faces. She took a deep, shuddering breath that felt like the first true breath of her life. She nodded slowly. Then she spoke, her voice carrying with an authority that silenced the radio chatter. "Officers, my name is Alara Vance. I have been kidnapped, assaulted, and nearly murdered tonight. I would like to press charges. And the primary evidence," she said, pointing a steady finger toward the glowing phone on the cage floor, "is right there. It recorded everything. The fallout was not a ripple but a seismic event that fractured the carefully maintained facade of the town's power structure. Tyler's phone was the Rosetta Stone of the case. The video, with its crystal-clear audio of plotting, mocking, the sounds of the winch being smashed, and Tyler's own damning narration, was incontrovertible. It wasn't a youthful mistake or a prank. It was a cold, premeditated attempt at murder, captured in high definition. Marcus was found an hour later, hiding in a chemical storage locker, weeping and ready to confess to anything. Jaden, under Anya's steadfast guidance and with the promise of full cooperation, secured a deal that spared him prison but placed him under strict probation and mandated community service. His testimony was crucial, detailing the planning and the history of harassment. His decision to run for help was the thread that saved lives, including his own soul. Tyler's family threw their considerable resources into building a defense temporary insanity, peer pressure, the dog being an unforeseen variable. But the video was public now, leaked to an investigative journalist. It went viral. National news picked it up. The public outrage became a firewall no amount of money could breach. The narrative of all American boys was dismantled frame by frame, replaced by one of monstrous entitlement. Tyler and Marcus were charged as adults. Their varsity jackets, once symbols of prestige, became global icons of bullying and psychotic privilege. The civil suits followed. Elora, with Anya representing her pro bono, sued the Briggs family and their security firm for gross negligence, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and animal cruelty. The case was settled for a sum that secured her mother's future and her own education many times over. But the true victory in court was for the dog. Cerberus, whose microchip revealed his real name was Ajax, was not euthanized. The public outcry and the veterinary examination Anya demanded revealed the truth. The Rabid aggression was a direct result of profound, chronic suffering, a broken, obsessed canine tooth, a degenerative hip condition left untreated, malnutrition. He was a creature in constant, screaming pain, which had been interpreted as high drive. With surgery, medication, proper nutrition, and, most critically, with Alara visiting him every single day at the Animal Rehabilitation Center, the monster faded away. In its place emerged a gentle, loyal, and deeply intelligent animal. The transformation was a living testament to a simple, devastating truth. What society often dismisses as vicious is merely pain that has never been heard. Jaden's path was quieter, harder. He was expelled from Stonehaven. His old life evaporated. He began working at the same animal rehab center, cleaning kennels, learning from the trainers. He never spoke to Alara unless it was about Ajax's care, and he never asked for forgiveness. His redemption was not in her pardon, but in the daily, humble labor of rebuilding a conscience, brick by brick. 1 year later, the autumn sun is warm and golden on the quad of a prestigious university known for its psychology and veterinary programs. Alara Vance walks to class, her step confident, a heavy backpack slung over one shoulder. Walking calmly beside her on a leather leash is Ajax. He is a different creature. His coat gleams with health. His gait is smooth, the hip pain managed. He wears a simple blue bandana. He is now a certified therapy dog, his calm presence a balm for other students in the counseling center, a living symbol that even the most broken things can heal. Her mother, Maria, now works day shifts at the clinic, her worry lines softened. The financial siege of their lives is over. Elara sometimes gives talks not as a victim, but as a witness. They thought they were throwing me to a beast, she says. But they only showed me a reflection of their own cruelty. I saw a brother in suffering. And in acknowledging his pain, I saved us both. The most revolutionary act is sometimes just seeing. The old industrial yard was razed. The cage was melted down for scrap. The story of the girl who faced a war dog and said, "Brother," has become a modern parable. It reminds us that the most formidable power is not in dominance, but in empathy. It is the courage to look into the heart of what seeks to destroy you and recognize a shared fracture. And sometimes, all it takes is one word, a word of recognition, of solidarity, to change the entire equation, to turn the weaponized heart back toward its true oppressors. True strength doesn't come from the uniform you wear or the name you inherit. It is forged in the quiet moments of choosing kindness over fear, dignity over submission, and love over hate. It is understanding that the chains that bind us are often the same, and our freedom is found in unlocking them together. Your life, your struggles, your voice, they matter. What is the one word you need to speak into your own situation? So tell me, from which part of the country are you watching this video? Leave a comment below. I read every single one. And remember, your story isn't over. Your turning point may be just one word away.